What's up? Welcome back to the Siris King Show. On this segment, I guess you could say it's about Haiti, but it's kind of the symbol of what I feel Haiti represents, and it's the concept of maroon societies, right? Whether you talk about the Planqueros in Colombia, the Mosquitos in Nicaragua, and them kind of in between, but kind of fit in that sense. The Garifuna as well in Central America. Um, shit, even got places like I forgot what they call in Brazil, but definitely areas in Brazil where they were maroon type or freed slaves type. And the thing is, I'm not just saying this about freed slaves because that's why I'm using Haiti because Haiti was an example, the bigger one, like as a country. And I feel that many people, black, white, and everything in between, in today's world, don't realize that, in a sense, that stuff is still going on, right? So what I mean by that is, when I say that stuff is going on, I mean it from the angle of it's not an easy thing to understand because the first thing most people are going to say, honestly, is, what's the difference, right? For most people, they're going to be like, everyone's all black, right? Or for other people, they might hear this and they might say, well, I'm trying to practice. So it's like, let's say Haiti's example, and they do voodoo, right? Again, do most Haitians do voodoo? No. But every Haitian knows, whether they accept it or not, whether they think it's good or not, that the country exists because of voodoo. And that's what makes it unique. That's what makes it unique. And obviously, they had a revolution, right? But they weren't given freedom. But see, when I say they weren't given freedom, the people who understand politics are going to take it in their direction. And they wouldn't be wrong from their aspect. But when you look at this from a metaphysical standpoint, and I feel an aspect that's, I guess, exhausts both spectrums, you realize it's not just because of the revolution. It's not even just because of only voodoo. There's African traditional religions in a lot of countries. Even countries that, you go to Bahamas and they do a version of Ifa worship they call Obia. It's not really the same as Obia in Trinidad and Jamaica, but it's something, right? So it's not just that, but it's coming from the angle of when you understand it's a symbol, but it's also, you got to understand, it's coming from the concept of most spiritual systems today, right? No matter their origin, for the most part, it's kind of influenced from the Greek mindset, the Indian mindset, and to some extent the Jewish mindset. So what does that mean? Well, because of that, people will look at, let's say, something like in Haitian voodoo, the Loa, and equate that to a god, right? And the Loa is much bigger than a god in terms of size. So big that it's actually, each Loa could be many spirits under one umbrella, right? Legba would have many different versions of itself that are independent, but still connected to the same family. No different than two brothers leaving and living in two different places and still brothers. And every Loa is like that, some bigger than others. So when you say God, a God like Zeus and or even a saint, and say this Loa, it's not quite the same. And then you got the Indian mindset, which is, it could be gods, but it kind of gets more into avatars, which is similar to gods, like, a higher being coming down teaching, right? And so the Jewish aspect is kind of more Kabbalistic. That aspect is a little different, so I'm going to leave that one alone, but definitely the Indian and Roman, right? Or Greek. It was really Greek, Roman, Indian, right? So like, I'm going to put Greek and Roman together and Indian, right? That comes in and influences every system. I don't care the origin. And when it influences every system, what ends up happening is, and this can get from the Indian point of view, where the body becomes something where you no longer like, or you disdain the physical, right? That it becomes something that you don't like. And that becomes a problem because that will change, and the ecosystem is something that you don't really care about. Now, the reason why it kind of gets into a whole nation, even though it's not the whole nation, but listen, voodoo's everywhere in Haiti. Whether it's the food, the music, you don't have to actually do it. And that's the problem I feel that when you have blacks in the New World, or even sometimes in colonized Africa, but definitely in the New World, or because you get initiated, and or because you begin to start doing it, any African traditional religion, it's not the same. You have to catch up. So what I mean by that is, if you understand, shit, I have been doing this for hundreds of years, then you got the right mindset, right? And if you understand, you know what? If I'm doing this, I gotta do it hard. I gotta do it much harder than somebody who was raised in that culture who might take it for granted. Shit, voodoo is not even my main African system that I use, and I've seen it from Togo to Benin to Haiti, and the many branches that people don't even know about. For me, I believe in anywhere where if there's any system I'm studying, I love to look at it when it goes to someplace else and see how it changes, because it's still part of the same grid, but it's gonna be different. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be in a new localized spot. So sometimes the system is different. Hence, voodoo in Haiti versus voodoo in Africa, where voodoo in Haiti has other influences. Has a lot of Yoruba influences, more Congo influences, some Igbo influences, some influences from Tainos, right? Shit, some influences from Sengamian regions, so Senegal and Mali. Some, according to some, I don't know this for sure. According to some, even Malagasy influences, which is Madagascar. I don't know if that was for sure, but that's what they say, right? And it has all those influences, and it came together, and it's voodoo, but it's very different, probably more aggressive in that sense. And so it's not just, and then this is the real reason why many people are not gonna tell you, right? So I spent 7 minutes kind of giving you a little background about, or not even quite the background, but kind of going into what makes Haiti different, whether the whole country, whether they practice or not. They could be Catholic, they could be Protestant, which most of them are, but the voodoo's everywhere, right? Even if you don't want it to be. But why is that a threat? Well, it's a threat because when you look at the world, when everyone looks at colonization, you know what people look at? They look at physical colonization. They look at financial colonization. That's what they look at. But what they don't look at is spiritual colonization, which is far greater. And this is why I don't spit racist rhetoric like some of my counterparts, because Europe had their own pagan traditions, many. Every culture had their own indigenous traditions. What eventually happened is a cartel came in and conquered the world, including Europe. So when you're into European paganism, you have to recreate your systems, right? Try to remember them. In a lot of cultures or countries, they have to do the same in that sense. Voodoo, and it's gonna be about voodoo, but the same could apply to Ifa and Palo. But definitely, Palo's a little different. It was recreated here from inspiration from Bantu sources in Cuba. It was inspired by that, but let me leave Palo alone. But Ifa and voodoo especially have existed for thousands of years, especially voodoo. And in a sense, Africa tradition in general, I'm gonna go Africa in general, spiritually has not been conquered. Spiritually. We're not talking about physically. We're not talking about, financially, you plug into the global system. Obviously, every country has been conquered. But if you look at systems, this is why if you go and you practice any system, you could even say, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Shinto, I'm a Hindu. You don't feel that pushback from the system, right? Because every system outside of Africa has been conquered spiritually. That's the difference. And it goes deep because, and this is why I said Haitians and Haiti has a special place, because if you're in America and you say, well, I'm practicing my African shit, but then you're going into like 5% shit, Hebrew Israelite shit, Egypt, ancient Egypt, those are all energies I'm not talking about. I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa. So let's get that clear. Sub-Sahara. The North obviously being conquered. I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa. East, West, Central, Center, South, and everyone who descended, not living on the continent. That And it doesn't matter what system it is, for the most part, has not been conquered out of every continent, period. And so the first thing they try to do is, not only do they try to separate you from that, that's what they do, but even if you try to reconnect, most people have the wrong mindset when they reconnect, because these systems weren't designed to be written down and taught. So when you're not born into those systems, what ends up happening is you end up bringing Greek and Indian stuff into it. And I love Indian systems, so I'm, nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying, what makes African systems so dangerous is that we don't make a distinction between body and spirit. It's the same to us. That's the difference, right? We don't ignore ancestral obligations. And even though this is about Haiti, and that's West Africa, obviously Haiti's in the Caribbean, but inspired by West African sources. You go Central Africa, you go Southern Africa, you go a lot of parts of East Africa too. Not all, but a lot of parts of East Africa. It's now, it's not the word shamanism, but it's animism, right? It's nature magic. It's what I don't like to use shamanism because that's not for there, but it's related. Like, it's meaning when you deal with those traditions, you try your best. You consider yourself part of the ecosystem itself. No different than the Red Indians here. The Red Indians do the same thing. They consider themselves part of the ecosystem, and the ecosystem is their mother, right? No different than Aborigines in Australia. All these systems at one time had very similar strength levels, but over here, the Red Indians, even spiritually, got conquered. We're not talking about physically. Everybody got conquered physically, but spiritually, that's the difference. So when you come in and say, I'm going to recreate that, or I'm going to do it now, you got to work harder, my nigga. I'm just saying, you got to work harder. You can't be on some, I do this a little bit today, I do a little bit tomorrow, I don't do it, and then, you have to change your mindset, and you have to know your ancestors haven't done this for hundreds of years. You got to know that. If you don't know that, it's almost no help for you. In fact, if you don't know that, it could hurt you more than help you. Not hurt you and you can be cursed and stuff like that, but you have to be aware of your change of circumstances, right? If you're an African born in America, anywhere in America, from North America to Chile, you have other influences too. Ignoring those other influences just weaken you anyway. This is why I don't really make a big deal about a person saying, should you practice like in Cuba? In Cuba, you get that where somebody will be like, I'm practicing pure Lukumi, or I'm practicing Santeria. Santeria is mixed with Catholicism. Cuba, I'm going to make a separate video for Cuba. It's more structured. Haiti is powerful and it's decentralized. Right? It's powerful, but it's decentralized. Not one person's running. Same way how you had voodoo queens in New Orleans. You could never have voodoo queens in Haiti the same way. It's different. It's decentralized. So meaning everyone has their own pockets that they're factoring. No different than gangs in that sense. And the country had it. So yes, you don't really see the English-speaking countries as much, but you have in the Portuguese and Spanish-speaking countries, yeah, you got little portions of places there. They're like little Haitis, meaning you go to Colombia, you go to the Palenque village, right? What happens? You kind of go to Colombia, you go to the Palenque village, what ends up happening? You kind of come in from, I'm trying to see how I can explain it to you. You see, oh shoot, you go to, everyone should do that one day. You go to Colombia, you see it, right? You see this village. What do you see? Well, people who've been kind of either freed themselves or their culture from Africa is still intact. I have, well, not really, great grandparents who speak in Yoruba and shit. You see what I'm saying? Like that was intact. So when you don't have that, you got to work harder and you got to study other shit. But then you also have to look at the symbol and even if you don't think you care about it, understand why they will never let Haiti be free. And yes, there's the political angle, the politics to it is the first free black. Yes, we get that, but spiritually, there's some Haitians who are gonna understand. Listen, we could debate, right? And we could say of Haiti, but we could say for many people practice African Jewish religions. You go to Africa, we got the African Jewish religions, and then we have Judaism and Kabbalah. That wasn't really, Kabbalah and Judaism wasn't really brought in by sword. That wasn't. Right? That's just why so much of us believe that we're Hebrew Israelites. Islam and Catholicism was. Islam for some people wasn't. Senegal was peaceful. Nigeria may not have been peaceful. Right? So Islam would be controversial, but no matter where outside East Africa, Christianity was kind of brought in, forced. But guess what though? East Africans are still black, and Eritrea and Ethiopia, they acknowledged Christianity before Rome did. The only country that I think beat them, in terms of when they did it, was either Georgia or Armenia. I think it could have been Armenia. But Ethiopia and Eritrea did it before the Romans did. So I'm not going to even say Christianity by itself is alien to the continent. What I would say is Christianity the way it's in that current form. Islam could go 50-50, right? Judaism, no. It was kind of, it came in, it wasn't brought by enslavement or by the sword. But it's African traditional religion first. So I do Kabbalah, right? Sufism is crazy influential to me. Sufism probably influences my behavior far more than Kabbalah does. Kabbalah influences my behavior, my esoteric wisdom more. But Sufism definitely is an inspiration. And if I was more disciplined, I probably would be a Muslim, right? But guess what? Whether I was a Muslim, whether I'm a Kabbalist, I'm an African living in the Americas first, and the African systems is part of my body, literally. It's my DNA. That's something that you can't do. Like, that's not an abstract thought. So when you're doing Haiti, when you're doing voodoo especially, it's a tangible system. When you see all these people making fun of Anunnaki and, all these alien shit, you can't do that with Ifa and voodoo and Palo. And let's go, Sun Goma. You can't do that for the South African homies. You go to Madagascar, you can't do that. You can't. Right? Bawati, all these systems, Obia, you can't do that. Winti, you can't do that. But they exist as countries that kind of bit the apple. Haiti never bit the apple and kissed the ring. So Haiti's always gonna have a little extra something. And it's always gonna be tension. That's why we see the Kenyans now being used as pawns and coming into Haiti instead of any Western faces doing it. Because this war is just as big as any war. Any war against China, any war against Russia. It's a spiritual war. So I just want to tell you guys that, and I want you to start looking at Haiti from a different angle, right? Not just for the country, but for the symbol, and looking at your spiritual routine and seeing how does that fit. And if it doesn't fit completely, I'm not saying go and study voodoo. I'm saying you need to understand why certain things happen in the world and look at it from a different angle. Siris King. Till next time. Peace.